Hey friends, welcome back to the Destination Baby and Kids YouTube channel. This is Gina. I am here with you today to go over which Nuna convertible seat makes sense for you. So in front of us today, I'm hiding behind the seats just so that we can get a clear view of them. But we're gonna start over here with this guy in the navy. This is the Nuna Rava. The one in the center is going to be the Nuna Revv, and then the one over here to my left, your right, is going to be the Nuna Exec. So price points, $550 for Rava, $650 for Revv, $750 for Exec. So I've got them moving up in price, and they're all gonna do different things, and they're all gonna do different things well at different price points. So let's launch into what makes them special. So I would say, let's start with Rava. This is gonna be your most cost-effective Nuna car seat. So this version that you see here, candidly, this is a very old color. This is called Lake. This is discontinued. I have an actual store, so what I'm saying by that is I'm not paid to do these videos, so I don't get like free product that the companies are sending to me all the time. So sometimes I might not always like floor the newest, latest, greatest model, but I will go over with you the difference between this one and the new 2024 because we are in 2024. But in general, the overarching features are generally the same. So Nuna Rava has been Nuna's longest existing convertible seat. So Revv and Exec are newer. Rava's been around the longest. Rava goes from 5 pounds up to 50 pounds in a rear-facing mode, and then in a forward-facing mode, the new 2024 goes from 30 to 65 pounds. Anything before that would be 25 to 60 pounds. So with this seat, something that's exciting that they're talking about is that they're encouraging families to keep their children rear-facing longer, so you can't start using the 2024 Rava forward-facing until your child is at least 30 pounds, and then also in alignment with what your state's law is as far as age. So like, I'm from California, this seat here, you can't put a kid forward until at least the age of 2 by law, but then also they would need to be 30 pounds, okay? Again, this is the older model, so this would be 25 pounds, but anything 2024 and newer would be the 30 pounds. And one way that you're gonna be able to visually see if it's a newer or old version of the Rava is the older ones have an exposed button for lengthening the harness. I actually like that feature. All the new ones that they make have covered buckles, which is like a chicer look. But when your mother calls you freaking out on like how to loosen the car seat, it's easier to tell somebody to hit a button than to have them digging around to find a piece. So I get it's better looking, and I totally understand that Nuna is design focused, but I like an exposed button. So that'll be a visual indication between what model you're looking at. So yeah, so if someone's charging you for 2024, make sure that it's got the 2024 features. So yeah, things to keep in mind. All of these seats can be installed with either the lower anchors or a seatbelt. So you're gonna have the option that in any vehicle, you're gonna get a really nice, safe installation. They have what's called a true tension door that will clamp onto either the lower anchor belt or the seatbelt, which gives you an incredibly tight, biting installation. One of my favorite features about these seats is that they have probably the clearest, simplest, most satisfying installation of all the brands. So when you do it correctly, it just feels really nice, and it makes a really nice crunchy sound that indicates that you're in a good place. So yeah, Nuna's awesome for those type of things. Additionally, all 3 seats are gonna have different types of side impact features. So the Rava is the only one that those pieces actually pop out. On the Revv and on the Exec, they just exist sitting already out here. You would do it toward whatever door is closest, or you could just leave them out. I would probably leave both out just because, but that's up to you. Both of these, not both, all of these seats will have a range of rear-facing and forward-facing recline. So if we look at the Rava here, when I press a button on the side of the seat, I'm able to achieve a pretty deep recline. There's 5 different positions that it'll stop at in both rear and forward facing. Revv also has 5 positions in rear and forward facing, and Exec has 4 in rear and forward facing. I would argue that the recline spectrum is the same on all of these seats, meaning there's only so much recline seats can have. So if a seat claims to have 800 different stopping points, that's great. It's all on the same spectrum. So whether or not it's 4 positions or 5 positions, you're gonna get a good amount of recline with any of these seats in both a forward and a rear facing installation. But Revv has one feature that when I show customers, they fixate on it, and then if they want it on a different car seat, it basically doesn't exist, and then they get really mad, and then they end up buying a Revv. So it works out well for me, but it would be something I would want my viewers to be aware of. With the Rava or the Exec, and 99.9% of other car seats, not every car seat, but most car seat brands, when the seat is installed, you cannot really adjust the recline of the seat. There are some seats that claim you can. They're generally pretty poor. What's been exceptionally awesome about Revv, whoop, there goes the infant headpiece. All of these have infant inserts. My poor Rava I've had on display for so long that I actually lost the body pillow, but that would come out after 11 pounds. The one that you see here is going to be 4 to 11 pounds on the Exec, and that's the same story with the one on the Revv. So when we're talking about the Revv, this is one of, it's really one of the only car seats that when it's installed in your car in either a forward or rear facing mode, you're going to be able to adjust the recline. So you don't have to uninstall the seat to get it to recline. Once it's installed, it'll have a really nice freedom of movement and recline in both backward and forward. Exec and Rava, you preemptively set the recline prior to installation, meaning that if it's installed and you want to recline it more, you would need to uninstall the seat, adjust the recline, then reinstall the seat. If you have this product and you're about to comment, I can adjust mine just fine once it's installed, you're not supposed to be using it that way. The recline is supposed to be set prior to installation. You can check the manual, but additionally, when you do get a tight installation on either the either the Rava or the Exec, it would be really cumbersome to get it to recline once it's correctly installed. So if you're doing that now, please read your instruction manual. You are not supposed to do that. Okay, so Rava 550, backward to 50, forward to 65, most cost effective. I'm gonna take Rava down off the table because for Revv to show off what makes it special, we need a little bit of clearance next to the seat. Revv suggests some type of revolution, and they mean that both in an exciting sense of it's a revolution, but also in the sense that the seat will spin toward the door. So you have a rear-facing seat. You can turn the seat toward the door. You can load your child into the car, and then you can spin the seat backward. Once the child gets to the correct weight and height, so on this seat for California, it would be 2 years of age and 25 pounds, we would be able to spin the seat into a forward-facing mode. I still would not suggest that. We would want to do what's best practice, which is leave a kid rear-facing as long as the seat will tolerate it in terms of the weight and height allotment. So the exciting part about this is that if you have a 2-year-old that's kind of heavy, or just any 2-year-old, they're squirmy, wiggly, loading them in door facing and then spinning the seat backward is significantly simpler than loading a kid in and out of a seat when it's permanently fixed in a backward facing mode. I get that that's controversial to say. No one in sales is ever supposed to say anything that might make somebody feel negative about a decision they've already made. I'm not saying that seats that don't rotate aren't good, but I'm saying that I think there is a tremendous value to being able to spin the seat toward the door, especially if we're asking people to leave their children rear-facing for as long as the seat will tolerate it in terms of weight and height. Giving them a tool to enable them to do this best practice behavior for the longest period of time has a high value to me personally. So that is why I generally am a pretty big fan of the rotational seats, not every single one, especially if the rotation is poor, then it's what are we even doing here? But when it's done correctly, like it's done with this seat, with an anti-rebound panel, and adjustable recline in both rear and forward facing, I think it's a really awesome option. This guy's gonna be $650. Part of the reason why people will protest that or get kind of annoyed at the price point is that between this one, the Exec, and the Rava, this one has the shortest duration of use. And so people are like, well, does that mean that it expires sooner? I'm not talking about expiration. What I'm talking about is this seat will only hold 40 pounds rear facing, 40 pounds forward facing, I believe up to 43 inches in height. I am gonna double check that once I get to the front of the seat. But the other ones will hold 49 standing inches for height, and they both go to 50 pounds rear facing, being the Exec and the Rava. So you would be able to have a kid in Exec or Rava for a longer period of time than you would in Revv. Meaning if you buy a Revv, you will probably have to purchase a combination seat as the next seat, versus maybe with Rava, you'd get away with just buying a booster seat. Now, I would still argue that you should just be buying a combination seat anyway, instead of jumping a kid into a booster too soon. But again, that's a controversial thing for a lot of people as well. They really don't like hearing that they have to buy additional car seats. So for me, this is not a problem. That's what I'm trying to say. This does not bother me that it's only 40 pounds rear and forward facing. Also, I'm old school. 17 years ago when my nephew was little and born, 18 years ago, he's old now, seats routinely only held 30 pounds rear facing, and that still gets most kids easily into age 2. So 40 pounds for rear facing is fine by me, 40 pounds for forward facing is fine by me. What's a little bit harder with this seat for me, because I am a really long torsoed lady and I have incredibly short legs, but like a long body. This seat only has about, I think, 15.5 inches of seated torso height, and I think that's being generous. I think it's probably more like 15, but it's a short body. So I love this seat, but I do understand people's objections at a $650 price point for how long they're gonna be using it. My argument is it's got the easiest harness, it's got the best rotation, it's also got the best recline in terms of all the seats, and it would be one that you would only need to install one time. Also, if like you're a grandparent, I love this seat because you could adjust it for different children at different points depending on how old they are. So if it's not cost prohibitive, I think this is an excellent seat. And I love the anti-rebound feature on this Revv. So that's what makes this guy special. So we've got Rava, $550, Revv, $650, Exec, $750. So I'm gonna move Revv over. And Exec is gonna be the most expensive because we can use Exec the longest. So Exec is backward facing to 50 pounds. So it starts, I believe, let me just double check. Starts at 5 pounds. You remove the infant insert piece in it after 11 pounds. It's got multiple rear recline and forward recline, 4 positions. It also has a leg extension. This piece can be used in rear or forward facing. It directly states it in the manual. So for a forward facing kid, when they have longer legs and their knees need to break over a longer distance, we have a deeper car seat here. This is actually a really nice feature on this seat because this seat has one of the longest torso lengths out of all the premium car seats. So you're looking at about an 18.5-inch seated torso length. Your Rava, which was the first one, is 17. So we're at 15.5 for Revv, 17 for Rava, 18.5 for Exec. That's what I measured. There's also magnets on the side to be able to hold this guy over. I can never find it, so I just generally tuck the buckle into the plastic. But the 18 inches of seated torso height plus the extension of the depth means that you're going to be able to use this 5-point harness in a forward-facing mode up to 65 pounds, and the seat body itself accommodates a bigger child, which I think is really, really critical. The other thing that's useful about that is that this seat is backward-facing to 50 pounds, forward-facing 5-point harness to 65 pounds, but it's also a booster seat with a high back, so you don't take the back off ever, to 120 pounds. 57 inches tall as well. So having that additional depth of the seat, if we're talking about keeping a kid in here for the longest period of time, this is a nice feature. Now for rear facing mode, what's gonna happen with this is this will kick up, and this will also slide in and slide out. So as the child gets taller, there's leg extension. Rava also has a leg extension. It's not as profound on that seat. I can take Rev down and show you the Rava one. The thing that's really odd to me is that the 2024 version of the Rava, you have to have the leg piece kicked out when you install it in rear-facing mode. That is actually very irritating to me. One of the features I liked about the Rava is that if you set it in an upright mode with the kickstand in, you can fit it into a variety of vehicles pretty awesomely in terms of like short nose to tail. So I find it annoying on the new version, we're gonna have to have this piece kicked out, but on the older version, you could have it like that and in its most upright, so it would take up less room in the car. It's, again, not nearly as pronounced as the leg piece here on Exec, so I think it's a bit of a moot point, but it is just something I would point out. I'm gonna sit this guy up. There we go. Exec, as you can see here for rear facing, you wanna make sure that this is against the flat of the seat back, and you have a 50-pound rear facing weight limit, but you also have an extremely long length for the torso. All of these seats come with 2 cup holders. I don't have them on my Rev. That stuff gets lost really easily in my store unless it's permanently attached. So I guess that's one difference between these two and Rev. On Exec and on Rava, your cup holders are built in. On Rev, you are going to manually put them on. So just a small difference. I'm trying to think of anything else super critical to know about this guy. I do love that when you install Exec for a booster mode, it's recommended to use the lower anchor to install it to keep the seat in place when there isn't an occupant in the seat. Meaning some of these seats, like that ridiculous, I'm sorry, like the Maxi Cozy ME360, that thing is theoretically a booster seat, but when you want to use it as a booster, you don't latch it into your car. You always have to have the belt buckled over the seat, even if there isn't a kid in it, to prevent it from becoming a projectile in an accident. That is so silly. It has the lower anchors. You just install the Exec and you leave it installed, and then you'll use the seatbelt over your child's body when your child is sitting in the seat. So you don't need to worry about keeping this buckled in when there's no kid in it so that it won't fly out and hit you in an accident, because you can leave it installed in a normal fashion that's more useful. Okay, so 18 inches wide. Rava is 19 inches wide, so if you're gonna do multiple seats across, I definitely give advantage to Exec, which is the 18 inches wide. Rev is also 18 inches wide, maybe 18 and a quarter. So Rev and Exec are definitely narrower than Rava. Rava is going to be your widest overall sort of balloon seat. And Rava in the United States has no anti-rebound feature. So both Exec and Rev will have anti-rebound plates that prevent the seat from moving in an accident. Rava in the US does not have that. And there is no option for that. So I would encourage you to check out my installation video showing how to install all 3 of these to understand the difference between that. This was a really knowledge heavy with a lot of jargon video, so wouldn't surprise me if you have questions or comments. If you do, please feel free to leave them below. Please feel free to hit like. Please feel free to hit subscribe. If it makes sense to share this video with anybody just to sort of understand these differences, please feel free to do that as well. Nothing that I say in this video supersedes the manual for these. The installation for these, you need to follow the manual. You need to follow the manual for whatever specific model you have, and it does matter what model year it is. So if that's something you need to contact Nuna about to get a new instruction book or go online to find the manual, please be sure to do that. Your seat is marked with what the date is for its manufacturer as well as the model number. Okay, thank you so much for watching. It was a mouthful, and hopefully we'll see you in our next video.